Hello everyone, welcome to the Japanese Progress Update video number 10. If it's the first time for you watching this series of videos, basically what I do is I talk about my progress in Japanese and I really go through all the resources that I've been using, all the sort of difficulties I go through, also the goals that I will have set for myself for the following month, etc, etc. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about today, and it's not really a new thing, it's this textbook which I've been using for quite a while now, and basically for the last month I've managed to go through I think 5 lessons, so I'm up to lesson 20 now and it's out of 25, so I'm nearly done with the book. And I have to say, I really enjoy using Japanese for busy people. It's not perfect, but I like that it's a guide for me or a direction that I need to take to sort of, learn Japanese, because all of the other things that I do are more random and more sort of all over the place, if I may say. So having something which I just need to follow almost blindly is kind of nice. And I like to have this variety between something, quite strict or structured, that's the word, structured, as well as having things that are more sort of non-structured. Let's go with that. Another thing that I've been using, and this is not new, it's RTK, so I'm still doing the reviews, is getting a little bit better, and I'm trying a new strategy with it, which is when you fail the cards, I think it's 16 times, I don't know why 16, but I think it is 16 by default, then the cards get buried and they don't show anymore unless you actually go to the options and ask Anki to show them again in your reviews. But I've decided to just ignore the cards that I fail way too much, because I think I'm gonna wait for my reviews to go down maybe around 50 or 60 a day, which equates to I think not even 10 minutes of reviews a day, which is a nice time. And once I reach this number of reviews, I will just unbury them. But it seems to me that in terms of time that I have available to study Japanese, that makes the most sense, because I want to focus on other resources, which I'm going to talk about still. And that brings me to the other deck that I'm using on Anki, and this deck I've mentioned I think last month and most likely 2 months ago, I think. I haven't been doing this deck. Well, the deck is first of all a deck based on Japanese for busy people, so the textbook I just talked about. And I haven't really used that deck very regularly because I don't know, I was focusing on the other deck, and I think doing 2 decks at a time is a bit of an overkill in terms of deck practice, because it's kind of tedious, which I don't mind if it's for 10-15 minutes a day, but I don't want to spend like hours on Anki. I just want to focus on other things, for example, the textbook. The deck is not the best, and I think it's quite interesting to see how decks can be quite hit and miss. And this one I think is a bit of a miss. So first of all, the person that created the deck has added extra stuff. So like at the beginning of the book, you've got basic words such as like company, employee, reception, desk, or whatever. But then you also have long sentences, which doesn't make sense because at the beginning of the book, you don't really have long sentences in the vocab list. And I was essentially mostly expecting to have just a deck with literally one word can't. But actually that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because what I've been doing is that when I'm learning the sentences and then when I have to go from the English to the Japanese, it actually helps me practice a bit of speaking as well as just forming sentences, which I do find actually quite useful. And 2 things that I want to say about this deck is that, one, there's a fair amount of mistakes, which is a little bit annoying. For me, it's not too much because I'm lucky enough that I've got a great community of language learners on Twitter, which sometimes give me feedback if I ask them if the sentence is correct. And also I'm lucky enough that I have a fairly good grasp of most of the beginner Japanese. So I usually have the judgment of, knowing that something is not correct or the sentence is a bit weird. So it's something to look out for, because if a word is misspelled, even if you go from a, I don't know, ma sound to a mo sound, then that changes the word completely. And gladly I've been able to spot these mistakes so far. As I said, it kind of shows that some decks can be a bit random in terms of quality, but it's free, I can't complain. But it's important to be aware that a deck is not always perfect. And another thing that I've been doing with this deck is to try to replace the kana, because all the deck is written in kana, so katakana and hiragana. And whenever I know a kanji and its reading, I try to replace it. So for example, if I've got the word tabemasu, then I know it's to eat. So I try to replace the ta with the kanji, which is ta, essentially in Japanese. And I think it's first of all, I actually realized that without kanji, a long sentence with kana is really hard to read. Like you can't really, I don't know, it just looks very bad. Like, but with kanji, it makes it much better and much easier to read, and you can sort of spot like the meaning of words much more quickly. I mean, I'm a beginner, so I can't say like, I can understand all the kanji, but you know, the basic ones for me are very easy to recognize. Another software that I've been using, and you can tell I've been quite productive, is Rosetta Stone. So I haven't used it every day, but I try to use it about 2 to 3 times a week. It really depends on my timetable, because I find that my Mondays and Tuesdays and also sometimes Wednesdays are not my best days to go on Rosetta Stone. I just prioritize the things that I do, so I prefer to work on my textbook first and RTK, and then if I've got time I work on Rosetta Stone. And Rosetta Stone, just like I said last month I believe, is really useful. It helps me to learn vocab. It's great also for learning the reading of kanji. I do have a lot of negative things to say about it, because I don't think it's a software that you should use if you're a complete beginner in Japanese. It's way too hard. I mean, unless you go with a Romaji, but I don't see the point of doing a Rosetta Stone using only Romaji. I think you should at least use the kana, ideally the kanji, so you can sort of learn the readings and the kanjis, you know, how the words are actually written as early as possible. I think it really helps for that. But that's exactly why I think Rosetta Stone should be used when you've got quite a bit of experience in Japanese. Not like intermediate level, but beginner level like me, where you're quite confident with the kanji, for example. If you've used RTK before, or if you already know quite a few words of vocab, I don't know, I guess my knowledge of vocab would be between, I don't know, I don't want to overestimate myself, but I would say 300 words, 400 words, I guess, something like that. So if you have that kind of knowledge, I think Rosetta Stone is good to just practice the kanji, which is exactly why I'm trying to use it. So that's that. And then finally, I've tried to use Drops because one of my students recommended it. She said she was obsessed with it in my Portuguese class. So I thought, why not try it? And Drops, I can't say anything negative about it too much because I haven't used it for a very long time, so it wouldn't be fair really. But I'm not a big fan for now, because my impression on Drops is that you don't really learn sentences, which I find a bit problematic, because I don't know, I just want my Japanese to be a bit higher level than just one word things. I did learn words. I learned the word for mushroom, kinoko, so that's useful, I guess. So Drops taught me something, but I don't think it's what I want to spend time on for now, so I'm going to move on from it and maybe reuse it later on. But I did find good things, which is that there's an option on Drops, which if you've used Drops before will make sense, which is that when they introduce a word, you have the choice of wanting to learn it or just discard it if you already know it. And I think that's great, because there's no point in spending any time on a word you already know, essentially. So that's essentially it in terms of the resources I've been using since last month, since the last video. And now I'm going to move on to the things I will be doing over Christmas. And in this video, I also want to take the opportunity of talking about revising languages during the holidays or when you're away from home. And I think that can be quite important for some people, and it's definitely something that can be challenging for me as well, because you're not in your normal sort of routine, because you're going to be somewhere else and you won't have the same sort of habits that you have every day. So having a timetable which allows you to do language learning on a regular basis can be something challenging. So what I'm going to do for Christmas is that I might reduce the amount of time I spend learning Japanese a little bit, but I'm going to bring my Japanese for Busy People textbook that I've got here, and then keep on doing my decks on my phone, because that's just kind of easy to carry with me. So that's going to be my focus. And since I'm nearly done with the textbook, I'm hoping I will be able to go through the last 5 or 6 lessons in the book. Then I will just focus on revising the vocab, maybe doing speaking practice on my own, like, you know, redoing the activities. So because I'm sure the stuff that I've learned in the previous lessons, the first few lessons probably, has kind of faded in my memory. So that will be essentially my focus. And when I'm back in early January, I cannot say the word January properly, I'm sorry, French accent. So when I'm back in January, I will start working on Japanese from 0 to it's a book I've been wanting to get started on for a long time, because it teaches you katakana, and katakana, I'm kind of ashamed to admit, I can read it sort of well, but I can't really write it, and that's really something I will have to focus on after I'm done with Japanese for Busy People. I don't know if the book will be too easy for me. It's possible that it will be. If it is, I guess I'll have to sort of go with the flow, or I'll just focus on learning the katakana from this textbook. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be some things that I will be able to learn because the two books, so Japanese for Busy People and Japanese from Zero, don't follow the same sort of pace and order in terms of how they teach things, grammar and vocab. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be lots of things I can learn from it. And worst case scenario, it will be revision for me, so that's not a bad thing. And since I'm talking about Japanese from Zero, I'm quite excited because they agreed to send me the book number 5, because there's a series of 5 books up to now, and also Kanji from Zero, which is going to be quite good for me because I really want to get started little by little to write kanji, because I know it's usually said that learning to write the kanji is not super useful, but I think it's still something that I want to do progressively. So it's going to be sort of in the background in terms of my learning, but I still want to do it a little bit, even if it's, as I said, not my priority. But I will be very excited to try it. And if you want to watch a review that I did for the first book of Japanese from Zero, which I've completed before, I will try to link it in the description box below, but you can also check on my channel. It's one of my most seen videos, so you should be able to find it quite easily. So that's essentially it for this video. I hope you found it interesting, and sorry if there was a lot of information. If you have any questions, because I went through things a little bit more quickly than usual, then don't hesitate to write me a comment. I will always try to answer all the questions that I've got in the comment section. So far, I've been good with it. So that's it. I wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, etc., etc. And do not use the holidays as an excuse not to do language learning. You can do less if you want, if you're too busy, but try not to not do any language learning. I mean, obviously do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it can be a trap in which people can fall, which is to say, oh, it's the holidays, I'm going to rest, and then not do language learning. And when you get back into it, you've forgotten a lot of things and you have to start again, and it's harder to get back into it. So that's my advice. You do whatever you want now, and I will see you later. Bye.